Good evening, race fans. Welcome to the Hoopzoo Radio Network. Welcome to the Drafting the Circuits program. My name is Frank Santoroski. I'll be your host for the next hour as we talk about this past week in racing and preview next week. Joining me, I have Richard Youden and Luis Torres. Fellas, how we doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
You could probably tell I'm a little under the weather. I actually got COVID after avoiding it for 2 years and getting my vaccines. I got hit with it, and it is awful. But I'm here in my bubble all by myself, keeping you guys safe.
Yep. Well, we appreciate you coming on tonight. So
yes, sir.
We'll do the best to let you rest up. But it should be a good one.
All right, Luis, how are you, buddy?
Been very busy trying to balance the life of racing and photography.
All right.
Yeah, busy's good. Busy's good.
Busy's good. Yeah, busy. Yeah, busy.
Yeah, I
means
could
you're
say
working.
I could say it's sort of busy as long as the bills come along.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah. Formula One off their summer break. Indy taking a week off after having a long stretch going on. The Indy's got Gateway coming up. Formula One has until sometime at the end of August till they're back in action.
28th. Yep.
August 28th. Yep. End of the month. So, but NASCAR was in action at Richmond. Little bull ring up there in Richmond. So Kevin Harvick going back-to-back after ending a long winless streak. Now he's 2 in a row, peaking at the right time of the season if he wants to make a run during the playoffs there, which is, that's why they call this guy the closer, I guess. He still's only got the one championship to his name. But, certainly a little dangerous for those other guys out there that Harvick has found his form at this stage of the game. So, all right, so Louise, you had a chance to watch the Richmond race?
I was able to after I got back from such photography venture. That got to see pretty much the vital part of the race, which is the final stage where Harvick, of course, won back-to-back. And there's something that could be said about Harvick when you talk about being the closer. I think everybody remembers before he won in Michigan and, of course, last week at Richmond, he had gone 65 races without a win. And if people were wondering, will Harvick win again? Did what happened in Martinsville 2020 really affect his career? It seems like it did for a brief period of time, to where he admitted that the way he goes out and performs, it's just not enough in this day and age where you got to be on it when it matters most. And how many times? And there's a while back on Twitter, somebody said there's no other driver that has been compromised and some eyes screwed over by the playoff system more than Kevin Harvick. I'd like to attest as Jeff Gordon, but as far as active drivers is concerned, as Harvick, when you look at Harvick has had strong seasons. Look back at 2010 at RCR, he was a championship threat. If he was probably the top pound for pound the top driver that year. Some will say Johnson, some will say Hamlin.
I was going to say you can make a case for Denny Hamlin as well, but I think Harvick's probably been the wrong end of the stick more often than Hamlin.
Oh, yeah, and there's some cases that you can make that Harvick has, like 2015. He had a strong title defense. He was right up there, but of course, you had Kyle Busch ended up being the one winning it all. Even the 11 races, I still stand up. Kyle Busch probably was the third or fourth best driver of the year, despite the fact that he missed those amount of races. And then in 2020, he and Hamlin were having like a historic season where if any other format back in the day, those two would have been fighting for the championship to the absolute bitter end. But Harvick didn't make the championship four. He made one less ditch effort to take out Kyle Busch to assure himself it didn't work out for him at all, to the point that Busch did a 360 and lost nothing, whereas Harvick lost everything. And then he went a whole year without winning. And this season, it looked like it was going to be more of the same, but he was doing all right, not too terrible. But Stewart-Haas was just flat out struggling for the most part. They just could not get there to win. And now Harvick, he found the mojo, he found the motivation that it's been lacking as of late. And then advise the people that the 4-car has been quietly fine. It's just the matter of if and when they get back to victory lane, how strong they're going to be, and they're peaking at the right time. Sure, Harvick is not going to be regular season champion, but Harvick could really be a threat for that coveted title, of which I would not doubt that he'll be in the mix. And it's kind of similar to Scott Dixon in IndyCar. where people were kind of riding him off, and then finally got that win after a long drought, and then things are starting to click.
Yeah, it seems like we see that a lot when a driver has a long drought. You start to wonder, are they ever going to win again? Is this guy truly washed up? But the great ones will, like Harvick and like you mentioned Scott Dixon last week, will pop right back in there at the right time, and get the job done. But back to your point about the playoff format and whatnot, I really feel like this is what NASCAR wanted to emulate, when they went from the chase to the playoff, is something similar to other stick and ball sports where, throughout the playoff, we have, upsets, where you have top, just like watching the men's basketball tournaments, you have these upsets where these top seeds getting eliminated early, and the Cinderella stories, like you could say, Logano was a bit of a Cinderella story, or Kyle Busch when he had missed 11 races. You got those sort of things there. So, and the format's been around long enough that I don't think you could say that Harvick is getting screwed by the format, because the format is what it is. And the guys that are winning it are playing by the rules. So, I mean,
this is true.
Yeah, you could say in the past, in the
Harvick
past,
and Hamlin.
It's like that weird guy on Facebook that goes and says, "Oh, this is the 1993 late model series if we use Formula One points."
Oh God, yeah.
You know what I mean? That
guy. I'm every
not
day
happy
was
something.
About that
So
one. And
it's just,
here's why I'm not happy.
But
Johnson got more points than 07, so that made me infuriated. It's like, wow.
Yeah. So, but the format is what it is. For now, until they decide to tweak it again, which I could maybe see if we have, winners getting eliminated, that they may put another tweak in there, or they may not. I mean, I think 16 guys is plenty for the playoffs, because it used to be, what, 12?
It went from 10 to 12, except for the 1 year it was 13.
Used to be just 10, yeah. So now you're up to 16 where you have the elimination. And I like the elimination rounds, but, I'm still not sold on the championship race where it comes down to who finished highest of the 4 cars. But then again, it emulates stick and ball sports where, it comes down to the last 2 teams and whoever wins the game, or the series of 7 games in the case of it being baseball. So it comes down to the last 4 guys, and whoever wins it all. And that's kind of what they were looking to emulate, and that's what they've got. Some people really hate it. Other people enjoy it, but you got to say that, NASCAR TV ratings and attendance is back up on the rise after a bit of a decline for a bit. So, Louise, and Rich, you guys talk about this a little bit. I actually have to take a phone call.
Yeah, when it comes to ratings, they're doing not too bad. They're kind of on the par with Raw when it comes to viewerships and all that. Maybe a little bit higher than I gave it credit to. I forget what Raw beat. I think, Raw beat Better Call Saul series finale ratings wise, but that's now remember. But like, we talked about Hamlin and Harvick for as far as this quote unquote screwed. Yeah, they were in the season they didn't win the championship. They were the strongest. Look, as Frank mentioned about Logano, that was the year where it was all the big three, Truex, Harvick, and Kyle Busch. And guess who won the war? Logano.
Mm-hmm.
Where he took the stunning upset and Truex had to eat crow for it because he didn't win the war, and he finished second in champ. He got passed by Logano with like 15 laps before 10 to go. And then, as far as Harvick, he admitted after the Richmond race that he made a gear shifting mistake that probably would have cost him dearly because Bell was there. We talked about 12 laps fresher tires. He was trying to probably do he did something similar in the spring, but when Hamlin did it, he was able to pull it off. I think it was Logano and William Byron were in that mix late in the going as the sun was going down. Whereas Bell, he was flying. He just had a little hard time going through lap traffic with like Austin Cindric, Ty Dillon, and Michael McDowell. But he was there. He just ran. He just lost time with that lap traffic, and And here's another guy that has kind of stepped up his game quite a bit. Is Christopher Bell. Since that win in Loudon, he's been getting more top fives than as of late than some can say.
Yeah,
It's just
no, he's picked up. Yeah, no, for sure. And one of the things I wanted to touch on, coming out of the NASCAR world is looking. But we talk about ratings and we talk about the popularity of NASCAR and all this sort of stuff. But I was reading a report this week where the charter, which is this system that's been around for probably 5, 6, 7 years now, I guess, where teams can buy a charter or own a charter which guarantees entry into races. And I think it's 30 charters available in total, Louise, maybe a little bit more, I'm not sure.
it's it just keeps increasing and increasing, and that's the same guys like Dale Jr. and Kelly Earnhardt that like to go to Cup racing, but they just don't
Well,
see
this is the point.
yeah,
Yeah,
they don't see the return on investment.
well, this is the point I wanted to make, really. It was. I understand what they were trying to do, NASCAR, and of course, it was all the team owners voted for it because it suddenly made them. I think when they first came out, the original price was $8 million for a charter. So all of these team owners, especially if had multiple cars, Rick Hendrick made what $32 million overnight just by creating an $8 million charter per car. It's good work if you can get it. But now the reported value of these charters is up to $20 million a charter, with some teams, 23XI potentially being one of them, and Trackhouse potentially being another, looking to buy an extra charter. And there's 3 or 4 teams, Starcom being one of them, looking to sell their existing charters. So it's the money is starting to flow around NASCAR on the business side again. And I think we're going to start to see NASCAR evolve into the similar sort of platform that IndyCar is trying to take right now, which is, and Frank and myself, we discussed it on the show, and Luis, we talked about this in the past, how IndyCar has become what they call this business to business platform. If you look at the IndyCar field, there's not many commercial sponsors. And I'm talking commercial, I'm talking like Verizon's obviously in there.
Yeah, you're talking about there's very few direct to consumer advertising.
Yeah,
that where you can buy it,
and NASCAR's going the same route with these things like Exalta and these sort of business to business deals.
Worldwide. WWE TX, like the technologies with Trackhouse.
Yeah,
and
you
look
at, I've got actually in front of me here a couple of sort of die-cast cars from when I was working for RCR. And you look at who's on those cars now. You've got WeatherTech and you've got Granger. Well, neither of those are involved in sponsoring NASCAR anymore. And they were both consumer brands. Whereas, now the 3 car is predominantly Dow, who, I'm going to go and buy some Dow chemicals today. Well, nobody says that. So I think they're going to go in that direction as well. And I think that's where the market's going to be. Yeah, there's still going to be the big brands and the big manufacturers that have the commercial product. But I think more and more you're going to see, even FedEx on Denny Hamlin's car. Very few people use FedEx from a payment standpoint. They'll receive FedEx packages, but unless you're a commercial company, very few individuals will go to a FedEx store and ship a package on a regular basis. And everybody knows who FedEx and UPS are, so you don't need to sponsor a NASCAR team to get your name out there.
Yes, but you might want to use a NASCAR event to bring a bunch of potential clients out to a thing, and that's what a lot of these sponsors are do. Like, I mean, remember Penske had Fitzgerald glider kits, right?
Yep.
Well, they make commercial trucks, and what does Penske have other than race teams and car dealerships? Rental truck line, So that's a business to business, certainly right there. And then of course Arrow Electronics, they don't sell to the consumer, but they sell to the companies that build stuff for consumers, and they utilize IndyCar racing as a avenue to market their technology and again to entertain potential clients. So it's just a changing business model. We're not selling cigarettes and beer.
No.
And if you
recall, good old days.
If you recall when they used to call the Bush Series, they used to call it the the grocery store series because you have the Kleenex car and the Tide car and the everything and the
Yeah, the days
Oreo
where the Bush Series
cookies
had
and
some of the finest schemes ever.
oh yeah. Just look at the grocery store series. They were all but now internet advertising has made it so much easier for consumer products to reach out directly to their target audience without slapping their name on a race car, and it's more effective.
Yeah, just like the days of land snacks and all that jazz is kind of fading away. Like you're lucky to have Kroger still putting money into a race team and into sport. I think we're going to see a lot more now. Remember, worldwide express technologies. That's what WWE Tech is for that team, and they're stepping up to the plate. Apparently, coming up in the foreseeable future. I can't say exactly who this will impact team wise yet, though. But it'll impact a couple teams as far as investments is concerned. But yeah, those days
Yeah,
that I
the only
mentioned are
other
gone.
the only other kind of interesting newer things coming up are like the Bitcoin deals, which I think that's a market that's gonna eventually self-destruct. But
Yeah,
you've got some of
It's not
those that
far off already.
yeah, I was gonna say you've got
yeah.
some of those out there. Then you've got
I I have no pity for it.
THC companies and that's one of what Ross Chastain sponsor the 3M
Um,
or is that
Three Kai, that's Tyler Reddick, the eight
Tyler
Tyler
car.
Tyler
Reddick and
Reddick,
the
yeah,
8K, yeah.
and they're THC or whatever they make edibles or whatever, legal marijuana.
Yeah.
That's still that's legal in racing. And some of the I'm surprised we don't have more of the vapor companies because they were on a couple of the Indy cars for a while. We had the
Yeah,
Mystic
there's
car and the blue car. The only one we have now is the Views, which is on the McLaren, but those are still legal to sponsor for race cars. But yeah, and as
Even on
far it is.
billboards.
Yeah, and it's yeah, and radio advertising too. There's this guy locally here. His ads are on like every couple of minutes. He's like 1-800-MAGIC-VAPORSHOP.com. That's how he says it. But I digress. I'll have to use that for our vape podcast. All right, so we're off to Watkins Glen, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, it's by far probably the most anticipated Cup race in the regular season, not named Daytona.
It
As
is. Yep.
far because you got I don't know, you got a world champion, you got a Le Mans winner, you got a litany of international drivers. There will be 7 of them, including the United States. 33 out of the 39 drivers from the States, and then you have 6 other countries, including one Finn driver named Kimi Räikkönen. You might have heard about that guy. He won the world championship. Still to this day, the last man to bring Ferrari the world title.
Yep. Kimi Räikkönen in the Cup Series. We got Danny Kvyat in that race.
Yep.
So this is the first time we've had people from 7 different countries in the race, and again, Watkins Glen is one of my favorite tracks. It's the seminal home of road racing in the United States. And you won't convince me otherwise. And it's always a good show. And the Cup guys get around there quite well compared to some of the other road courses and rovals that they kind of fumble around. Watkins Glen, they've been going there long enough. A lot of these guys are really good at it. So, and I'll tell you who I like because he needs a win, and I like Martin Truex.
Yeah, it's not that.
Toyotas have struggled at road courses there this year, haven't they?
Yeah, they haven't been on par as much, but who knows if they'll get it together and turn it around this time. But we have to wait and find out. A guy that I do like, though, I think if there's one guy that really also needs to get it together and win to really go for pure chaos, there's a thing called here in Northwest Chaos, but we're going to call it here Chaos Racing. Because if Michael McDowell were to pull it off, or even Chris Buescher, or as we like to call him now, Christopher Buescher, that's the thing going around social media, and technically it's not wrong. Those Ford duo had a strong showing at Sonoma. Michael McDowell has always had strong showings on road courses. Just we haven't seen him capitalize on race results. I feel like the Ford camp could really turn up and really go full chaos, much to the chagrin of Blaney and Truex. So if I had to narrowly pick, I'm going with McDowell on this one over Buescher.
All right, and Richard, you gonna abstain
Yeah,
since you're
we'll
since
leave
you
it to you
since
guys.
you already poo-pooed my pick. So, well, I'll say,
Well, I trust me. I hope that's not the case, but
yeah, yeah, I like
you
to
know,
see, I like to see us get to that 16th winner, though. You know who else I think will do well in this run here? Austin Cindric. So, because
Yeah, you
he's
can never
pretty,
count him out.
yeah, he's pretty sporty on the road courses. So,
Yeah, and he's got it. Yeah, Richmond wasn't necessarily the best of days for him as of late compared to the other races, but you don't count him out. And of course, you got Allmendinger, can never count him out. It's just a matter of that car living up to the plate. That's the thing with the
see
16 team all year.
now if Allmendinger wins, that's good news for either Blaney or Truex, right?
For
Because
the
because
drive, yeah, for
because
drivers.
Allmendinger's going to take a win spot, but he won't be eligible for the chase
No, it
or
won't
for the playoffs, right?
other for the 16 team because they do punch their way in if that rule still exists, which I think it still does, where the
it's a
owners
full-time
could
team,
have
isn't it?
different, yeah. So the 16 could inadvertently prevent the 12 or 19 team from making it to the owners' playoffs. Of course, that doesn't get publicized, but it's still vital for the owners.
Right. But
Revenue.
for the drivers thing, Allmendinger,
It
even
doesn't.
if he wins the race, you're not gonna see him
Exactly.
in the playoff. Right. So, all right. So you said we had some contract extension news. I heard Ryan Blaney was in the news.
Yeah, Ryan Blaney sticking around with Team Penske on multi-year agreement. And on the IndyCar side, you have Elio Castroneves going to stay with Meyer Shank Racing for a bit, and then Christian Lundgaard of Ray Hauler and Milanigan is going to go stay with them for multiple years. They expanded the contract deal for what was initially a multi-year deal. Now it's kind of like multi-year past 2023.
And
I believe what they've done with that by extending his contract is they put clauses in there. I believe they put performance clauses in there to prevent an Alex Palou type situation where if this guy suddenly comes on really strong, that they don't they can't necessarily lock him into a smaller salary, a la what and cause him to look elsewhere like Palou is doing.
I
Yeah,
think
and I think it's going to be important going forward with that. Like for teams, like we see elsewhere in sports too.
yeah, Bubba Wallace has signed an extension with 2311 as well, which was all pretty um, pretty well known that he was
Yeah,
going to, but that's been confirmed this week.
Yeah,
that was expected. Yeah, so you got some decent guys staying in decent seats. I mean, Elio, my God, he has been very disappointing this year. But they went into the season knowing it was going to be a rough season. Pagano has shown so much more than Elio, and I don't want to say Elio's lost it because we just talked about these old guys with long streaks who end up surprising us again. But I do believe Elio is still in good shape and good form. He's had some bad luck this year, and they've had some bad luck with strategies and setups and whatnot. So, but good for him to keep him in the series. He's one of the more popular guys in the series. Lundgaard certainly a rising star. Ryan Blaney in NASCAR fits in well with the Penske organization. Good to see him staying there. So, all right, is that all? Is that all our contract news, or do we want to talk about Oscar Piastri's disaster getting worse?
that's all from my end as far as what I've heard regarding contract extensions. There's also a couple deal announcements where like Joe and John Hunter Nemechek are going to compete at Daytona for Sam Hunt Racing with Joe in the 24. It will be Joe's return to NASCAR for the first time after a few years.
Yeah, how old is Joe
He
Nemechek now? He's probably pushing 60.
got to be pushing 60, but he's kept
Yeah.
himself busy between the last time he competed in NASCAR with his heavy involvement in Trans Am and historic stock cars and so on. So he's kept himself pretty busy. It's just that he hasn't driven in a few years, that's all. But be interesting to see because Joe, back in the day when he came to Daytona, he was a threat, especially in qualifying. Time will tell if Nemechek.
Yeah. They used to call him Front Row Joe because he was so good in qualifying.
Yeah. And as far as Brandon Brown is concerned, in Xfinity, he's only going to run 3 out of the next 12 races possibly with Chris Wright, who was a Truck Series driver that has struggled, is going to be in the 68 Xfinity ride for 9 of those remaining 12 races because he does bring the sponsorship. The question is, can the 68 car stay out of trouble? That's all.
That's all, yep. So now, speaking of staying out of trouble, we got Oscar Piastri. This thing is just getting uglier. As the Palou one was getting uglier, Alex Palou was, made his attempt to go to McLaren, and then Chip Ganassi decided that they were going to sue him. That's all still pending. And now Alpine has decided they're going to sue Oscar for return of their investment of training him in their academy. So, Richard, what are your thoughts on this? I know the FAI has a commission to look at these sort of things, but this as a precedent for what other drivers can do in the past, this is kind of an important how they hear this case, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's an interesting one because you're putting a value on something that doesn't exist. You're putting a value on a non-physical object, and so Alpine's sort of line of inquiry, if you like, is that Piastri has obviously been a long-term investment for them with the aim of getting him into Formula One in 2023, whether that was with Alpine or with another team. And then obviously we saw Fernando jump ship to Aston Martin, which opened the door for Piastri. And this has been their aim for a number of years now with him. And they've obviously invested heavily with simulator time, track time, because I believe he's been taking part in a number of old machinery tests to get him acclimatized to the tracks and the physical stresses of driving Formula One cars, throughout the year. So he's been building up to this drive with Alpine as they expected. And you're talking millions of dollars of investment here. And then suddenly he's turned around and said, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to go somewhere else." That leaves a pretty bitter taste in the mouth of Alpine, and understandably. Now, there are two ways of looking at this. Yes, you can point the finger squarely at Piastri's management group and team and people that have advised him to take what we all believe to be the McLaren role. But also, I do think that Alpine has a certain amount of responsibility on their shoulders as well. They know Piastri's contractual status. They know that there was a break in the contract or a time period where Piastri became a free agent. And if they didn't know that, then that's pretty naive of them. And they didn't execute in time. Now, whether that was because Alonso suddenly jumped without, expectation. They thought, oh, well, we don't have to make a move on Piastri now. We can just, whatever. They were just sort of treading water on it. And then all of a sudden, Alonso makes his move and they're like, oh, well, we're going to promote him to the team. And, oh, crap. Oh, no, it's all, timing's all unraveled. And they're, internally looking stupid because somebody dropped the ball on it. And now they're just trying to point fingers publicly to make themselves not look quite so bad. I genuinely don't know.
Yeah, that was the initial story I heard, is that Alpine actually missed the deadline by a day.
Yeah.
So, a day is a day. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
you look at, in NASCAR, JTG last year or 2 years ago missed renewing their charter by a day and lost their charter. A $10 million charter, now $20 million charter, they gave away for nothing because they missed the deadline. It happens. You got to be on the ball. And I'm sure Piastri's management team knew exactly what the situation was. And, as soon as that opportunity opens up at McLaren, what we believe to be McLaren, they jumped at it. Now, whether that's the right decision for his career to go to a McLaren rather than stay with Alpine, who knows? But, partly it's one of these situations, isn't it, where I think the mentality of these people and the drivers, and I don't want to say I don't like using the word in this case because I don't think it's necessarily valid, but the arrogance of the drivers may be a little bit, oh well, they don't value me enough because they've let my this contract expire. If they valued me as much as they say they did, they would have sorted this out earlier. So I'm going to go somewhere else that does value me more. I don't know. I'm sure that was what Zach Brown was telling him. But yeah, it's all very smelly. And at the end of the day, Alpine, yeah, Otmar is 100% right in his statements that this isn't about a contractual situation. This is about a human being sort of maturity thing. How you treat people in business. Very, very true, Zach. But you were the ones that made the mistake. And are you telling me that in your career, Zach, you've not screwed somebody over in this way? I bet you have.
Well, Ricardo.
Well, yeah.
Coming up. So.
Who's to say Oliver Askew? But that's a whole different animal.
Yeah.
An ordeal.
James Hinchcliffe.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say
yeah.
he was strung on. He told he had a ride to the last minute. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So Zach's no angel in this, and Otmar's no angel in this. So
some people say, speaking of Hinchcliffe, Sam Schmidt is viewed as such as well by some people due to that.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, any team. This is the problem you see in this. Any team boss or any team owner, they turn around and like, oh well, look at, whatever, their driver or team owner or manager or whatever, they've put themselves above, the team and all that sort of stuff. Well, 90% of the time, the people making those statements have done far worse in their own career to other people. So it's a bit of a mute topic, mute subject in my mind. You got to be a little bit careful with some of these comments and statements that you make.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So the other big, summer break news is that we've approved engine regulations going forward.
Yep.
For what was it, 2026?
Yeah, 2026 through to I believe it's 2030.
All right. So, and what have you read up on these? Obviously, we're just going to be a 6-cylinder. We're getting rid of the current.
Yes. So we're getting rid of the MGUH, which is, excuse me. Excuse me. I'll be very honest with you. Not realized that's the wrong word. I never understood why those were in there in the first place. They're a very, very complex and expensive component in the car. The concept behind it is that it takes heat from the turbo outlet and regenerates energy using the heat, which is, yes, it's a technology that is being used in certain circumstances, but it's got no place in a Formula One engine. It just makes it massively complicated, massively expensive. So we're getting rid of that. We're increasing the amount of electric deployment of the hybrid powertrain up to, I think they're almost doubling it. Increasing it by 50%, I think was the number I saw. So 300 something kilowatts, maybe a little bit more. No, to put that into context, your Teslas or whatever, I don't know the exact number, but they're not going to be far off, that sort of number. Let me see if I can just find out what a Tesla would be at. So it's probably 2/3 of what a Tesla can output, maybe half of what a Tesla can output, and this is just part of the engine. It's not the complete engine, so it's a pretty impressive, number to get to in such a small, compact package, to be able to deliver that power. Also, cost caps are coming in to engine manufacturing. The production and development of an engine is being cost capped, as opposed to just the team, which we've already had for a few years now. And that's of around $130 million a year, which is still a heck of a lot of money. So yeah, it's not an insignificant number, but it's a start, and it's to us it sounds crazy money, but to these guys it's not really. And a lot of these things that we're talking about here were key cornerstones and pillars, if you like, of Audi coming on board, or the Audi and Porsche group coming on board. They certainly wanted the cost caps in place and also the removal of this MGUH. So I think it's it's a good move, to guarantee their interest, and I think we'll start to see announcements and movements from the Porsche and Audi backed groups in the not too distant future. So
right, and
things
this
are
is
going to start to come
other
place.
the other component of the rules is 100% renewable fuels.
Yes, I think
Yes,
that was made public a while
a
ago.
while
But yeah,
back. Yeah.
the idea is this is net zero carbon by 2030, which is again to be encouraged. I think it's a great move, and it sets a good precedent and a good example.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see a lot more and more of that. IndyCar is going to be using a biofuel next year, developed by
Yep.
Shell, and then you're going to see more and more of it for your road cars too. That's just the wave of the future. And there's not a large performance loss. Um,
No, no. I mean, the biggest,
using a renewable fuel rather than a fossil fuel.
yeah, the biggest thing that fans see is the noise. That's the biggest thing they'll see. And yes, there is this romantic notion of a big thunderous throaty V10 blasting through the forests of Hockenheim and places like that, and Spa. It's a phenomenal experience. We've all been stood near these sort of style of cars when they're doing their business, and you can feel it. It reverberates around your chest. It's an amazing sensation. Um, but it's not as noticeable with these hybrid style cars. They've tried like putting like trumpets almost on the exhaust to make the exhaust louder and all that sort of stuff, which is a bit silly, really. But it's just the way we're going. You listen to a Tesla drive down the road and it's silent. And that's the way it's going. You can hear now. If you watch a Formula One race, you can hear cars running over the curbs. You could never hear that under the V10, V8 days. So it's probably going to get quieter as well, which is a positives and plus and minuses to that. But
Yeah,
it is a shame that we do lose
pluses
that.
for all these people that build their houses near racetracks and then complain about
Well,
the
yeah,
noise. Yeah.
yeah.
So
But it's growing the. What one thing I see and I think is quite important here is it allows the events and the races to go above and beyond just a race. You see it in Formula E and you've seen it in IndyCar a little bit recently. They have the concerts and the shows and the big, it's an event rather than just a race. And I think, having that sort of quieter package does, encourage people to go for, who maybe wouldn't, say there's a headline music festival on the same time, in the grounds of the track. People that go to that, well, I'm going to go watch the race now. They wouldn't necessarily have done that in the past. So I think it's good. It is attracting new audiences.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So we'll have to see how all that shakes out. But again, that Porsche and Audi were really instrumental in, giving their input to the rules package
Yeah,
before they signed on. So that's, get two more manufacturers. Well, one more manufacturer with two more brand names, two more marks in the sport there. So, as Michael Andretti continues to be kind of shut out, there were some more comments in the press this week. So
yeah.
somebody said something like, "Does Total Wolf has too much power?" And Mario Andretti said,
Well,
I'm glad somebody said it. It needed to be said." So
it is an interesting argument, isn't it? These
yes,
team owners, these not owners. They're not own. Toto doesn't own Mercedes. Horner doesn't own
team
Red Bull.
team
Managers,
principals. Yeah,
managers, principals, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, they do have. It's interesting to see the power game that's played, and you know, you look back at these guys are very very influential naturally, but you look back and remember the fallout from the Abu Dhabi race at the end of last year. It turns out that on the Wednesday night before the race, Toto Wolff was having dinner with Michael Massey. Where what would be the outcome if Bill Belichick had dinner with the Super Bowl officials the week 2 days before the Super Bowl? Wouldn't there be some questions asked, wouldn't there?
oh, absolutely. Yeah. So like I say, but this whole, these team principals want to lock out new. That's not unique to Formula One either.
No, of course not. No.
If the NFL wants to add a new team, all the other owners have to vote on that. So yeah,
Yeah,
but I still honestly, just from where I'm sitting, right, 10 teams is light. And I've said this before and I'll say it again
yeah,
until we have more than 10 teams. 20 car grid is very light. I think at 20, you should live in the 22 to 24
I agree.
range.
And I think to be a FIA sanctioned facility, you have to be able to support 22 or 24 cars. In your pit lane. Monaco may be the exception because I don't think we've ever raced at Monaco with the new pit complex.
I want to
with
say
more
even
than 20
even
cars.
back in the 70s and 80s, Monaco had they had an additional pre-qualifying because they had fewer pits. And
Well,
I
the
think
issue is,
maybe I think they were running kind of 24 to 26 at a Grand Prix weekend at a time, but I think Monaco was really only started 20. I think even back then, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, I
They
mean,
were able to accommodate 26 in 95 before
At
Simchek
Monaco.
folded. Yeah, and
well, what they used to do at Monaco was on the start finish line with the old pit lane, you had like three or four garages, which for three or four leading manufacturers. The other teams, then their garage was actually in the multi-story parking lot above the tunnel. So they had to wheel stuff backwards and forwards between temporary garage on the pit lane and the permanent setup garage and, working on the car garage, at the other end of the track. So, excuse me there. So their development of the new pit lanes was essential.
Yeah, that just sounds like a nightmare for the crew.
Oh yeah, kept him in good shape though.
Yeah. So all right. So what other Formula One news we have? I think that about caps it out, huh?
Yeah,
So
yeah, because we talked about last time that Logan Sargent is going to have a FP1 run at Coda later in the year for Williams.
yeah. There's some talk about. I did. Where was I reading? I was reading a comment that there's actually some doubt as whether he will get that Williams drive for next year. I don't know what the alternative is for them to pick up. But I did see them saying, "Oh, America's continuation of a search for a driver will go on past 2022 or into 2023." So I was like, "Oh, okay. Oh, who's that going to be then?" So it'd be interesting. I don't quite know yet.
Yeah, and as far as former F1 drivers is concerned, you had Stoffel Van Dort as your Formula E world champion. Of course,
Yep.
Van Dort was driving for McLaren for a brief period of time. He was at one point a super sub for that organization when Alonso had his no, not yeah, a
No,
couple of
Button.
times.
Yeah, Button. Well,
No,
Button
but
came in
Button was
when
Monaco for the
was
500.
Monaco when Alonso did Indy 500. Von Dorn came in post Alonso's crash in Melbourne when he went
Yeah,
over the back of one of the Caterhams. And Van Dorn did one race at least in Bahrain and actually scored points that race and finished ahead of Button, which I think was his
yeah,
debut.
yeah.
He strange driver. That's the wrong word to say. Very, very, very good driver, but just never quite got that opportunity to you know showcase what he was capable of. I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. And there's a large chunk of that F Formula E field. We could say the same thing.
Well, yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well, like Formula E, I did see a stat that said what Van Dorn had won the Formula E with just one race victory, and they were comparing to with other world champions with only one race victory. They mentioned KK Rosberg in '82, and I think the other one was way back. Maybe it was like Mike Hawthorne back in the '50s. So Yeah, interesting, but that's to take a title with just one win is showing a nice level of consistency on his part. And again, the Formula E is doesn't really resonate hugely in this country, in as far as prestige, but it certainly resonates with the automakers.
Yep.
Yep. So,
No, very much so.
all right. Well, I guess we are just about out of time here.
Well, there are two actually. Sorry, quickly. There
Oh
are
no,
two.
go right ahead. We do have a few minutes.
There are two US based Formula E teams. So with Dragon Penske and Andretti Autosport. So there's more US based Formula E teams than there are Formula One teams.
This is quite true. Yeah, didn't Marco race a Formula E race for his dad at one point
Yeah,
in
he did
time?
a
Or
few. Yeah,
yeah, I
he
thought
did a few.
for like the first season they had it. Yeah, so yeah, I don't get a chance to watch Formula E a lot.
It's sort of they're trying to make it something it isn't. I think they have like attack zones in the middle of the race, so you can twice a lap or twice during the race you can go into an attack zone and gain a boost. Then you also have fan boost and all that sort of nonsense.
Sound like you're playing Mario Kart.
Yep, that's
yeah,
exactly
a little
what
bit.
you're
Yeah,
saying.
you can throw out your
run over
run
over a mushroom and get super speed for a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, almost. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that way of racing. So they're trying to create something that isn't.
well, they're trying to appeal to the younger crowd who's more interested in electric cars and video games and those sort of things. I would imagine is what they're doing with that, because it does kind of sound like it plays out like a video game, is the things you're describing. So you got to appeal to that generation, I guess, if
Yeah,
because that's your next. Because certainly, one of the knocks on current motor racing is that it doesn't appeal to the younger generation with the shorter attention spans and whatnot, which is why NASCAR designed stage racing and these sort of things. And so, yeah. All right. So, well, we are out of time. So I'll let you guys go. I want to thank Hoobazoo Radio Network. I want to thank Spreaker, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and YouTube. I want to thank you, Richard Louise. I want to thank you folks that listen to us week in and week out. Until next week, well, good night.
WHOOBAZOO, that's Hoobazoo.com. Enter website, enter website, enter website, enter website.